have Matt Abrahams, who is a brilliant Stanford professor. He's the CEO of Bold Echo, and he actually has one of the most watched TED Talks in history on public speaking. So we have Matt here, and I am beyond grateful, Matt. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes here on the Lawyer Mastermind Show.
Thanks so much, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share ideas and thoughts with all of you.
So let's talk about quantifying anxiety, right? Let's talk about actually codifying what type of anxiety you're feeling and then how to conquer it after you've articulated what you're feeling.
So there are lots of different sources of anxiety that people have, and then there's specific skills that you can work on to help manage it. So allow me to share a couple with you, if that's okay. So many of us, we get very anxious because of what we're trying to achieve. When you communicate, you have a goal or multiple goals in mind. And what makes us nervous is the potential negative outcome that could happen. So we're not going to get our goal. The students I teach at Stanford, they might want a good grade. The people that I coach in terms of entrepreneurs, they want to get funding or support. You all might be interested in adding clients or having ideas shared beyond the room that you're in. And you made nervous by the fact that you are afraid that those things might not come true as a result of your communication. So the anxiety is a direct result of the negative future potential outcome. So how do you manage that? You become present oriented in the moment. Some of you might have heard of flow experience. It's this notion of being in the moment. You've heard of mindfulness, I'm sure. These are techniques that get you out of your head, out of the future, into the present. Simple things. Do something physical before you actually have your communication. Before I joined today, I did a little bit of exercise. Gets me in my body, gets me out of my head. Listen to a song or a playlist like athletes do. Start at 100 and count backwards by a challenging number like 17s. Try it. It's hard. That gets you present oriented. So one source of anxiety is fear that you're not going to achieve your goal. That's something in the future. Make yourself present. Another fear many people have is being judged or evaluated. And the reality is you are being judged and evaluated when you communicate. So we need to desensitize ourselves. You know, Bill, I have a 17-year-old son. He recently got his driver's license. When we were practicing for that test, we were out driving all over the place. He's driving, he's trying things that will be asked of him on the test. That's desensitization. So there are three ways to desensitize. One is practice, just practice. And when I say practice, I mean actually vocalize. Many of us look at our slides, look at our script, and we think that we're practicing. That's review. There's a difference between review and practice. And I don't know about all of you, but in my mind, I'm amazingly eloquent. But when I open up my mouth, I'm not always as lucky. So we need to actually vocalize. So practice is one way to desensitize. If you've ever done a sport, if you've ever played a musical instrument, chances are you've had a coach or a teacher who's told you to visualize doing that activity. There's a tremendous amount of research that says visualization helps increase performance and reduce anxiety. And there's over 3 decades of research in communication that says it helps make you feel more confident and less nervous. You can't do it moments before, though. You have to start about a week before, 2 or 3 minutes each day. See yourself presenting, see it going well. That will help. And then finally, I'm here in Silicon Valley. There's an app for that. There's an amazing app. I have no connection to it, except I think it's wonderful. It's called Virtual Speech. You get yourself a pair of goggles. They can be the crappy cardboard ones or the really expensive goggles. You download the free app on your phone, put the phone in the goggles, and you see an environment, a speaking environment. It can be a large conference. It can be an individual conference room. It could be a one-to-one interaction. They even have a virtual simulator. So what if you're on Zoom or something like that, and then you practice. So 2 major sources of anxiety: goal-based anxiety, fear of the future, you become present-oriented. And then there is audience-based anxiety, fear of being judged and evaluated, and we desensitize ourselves. So there are things you can do to help manage your anxiety. And it's critical that you take the steps to do it so that you can share all the ideas you have, you can get your positioning, your branding out there. You must manage your anxiety.
The next thing I want to ask you, Matt, is why the first 37 seconds is so important when you want to create an engaged audience. So talk to us about first impressions.
We form impressions very, very quickly. In fact, if we just look at somebody, impressions happen within milliseconds. It takes roughly half a minute to listen to somebody, to observe somebody, to make an impression. And as we all know, once an impression is made, it's very hard to change that impression. And the challenging part of all of this is our anxiety tends to be highest in the initial minute leading up to and minute of our communication. So when the pressure is highest to make a good impression, our anxiety is the highest. And that's why it's critical to create for yourself what I call an anxiety management plan, steps that you can take to help manage not only the sources where your anxiety is coming from, but the symptoms that you show to convey your anxiety. Because the reality is this: if we can mask or manage the symptoms of anxiety, people will then see us as confident and ultimately treat us as confident. And when we feel as if people see us as confident, we become more confident. So let me give you a few things people can do. In terms of body posture, nervous people tend to make them smaller. They shrink back. On the virtual world, they're far away. So you want to be big, balanced, and still. People who are confident take up space. People who are confident hold their head straight. They don't tilt their head. They don't slouch. And you're still. Nervous people move and fidget a lot. By simply being big, balanced, and still, you convey confidence. Some of us have tells that happen when we get nervous. I blush and perspire. Other people shake. There are things you can do to manage that. For example, if you're somebody who gets real shaky because of the adrenaline going through your body, do big, broad gestures when you start communicating. By engaging big muscle groups, you actually give that adrenaline a place to go. If you make yourself tight and small, you hold it in and you shake more. If you blush and perspire like I do, that's because your core body temperature goes up when you're anxious. It's like you're exercising or working out. So we need to cool ourselves down. The single best way to cool yourself down is very simple. Hold something cold in the palms of your hand. Your palms are thermoregulators for your body. They can make you warmer or colder. In fact, Bill, I bet on a cold day at some point you have held warm coffee or tea and felt that it warmed you up. If you're hot, you can cool yourself down. So just hold a cold bottle of water right before you speak will reduce the blushing, reduce the sweating. So there are things we can do to reduce the physical symptoms that we show so we appear more confident and ultimately feel more confident.
So talk to us, how can you confidently handle objections in any area of either your sales process, presentation, et cetera?
So a couple things. First and foremost, you should do some homework in advance to think about what are those areas of resistance and concern that somebody might have about your point. Whenever you are trying to motivate, influence, or persuade somebody, there are two approaches you have to take, or at least consider. There are two forces at work. One are promoting forces. Those are the ideas and things that you can say that will encourage somebody to do something. But at the same time, they're restraining forces that prevent somebody from taking on that attitude, behavior, doing that action. Most of us focus on the promoting forces. Here are all the things you should do. But if we don't address the restraining forces, if we're not aware of what those are, it gets in our way. I'm going to give you a real quick example, Bill. I have two children. When they were very young, they did not like to eat their vegetables. I tried my best to get them to eat their vegetables. You'd think a communication guy could get kids to eat vegetables. I gave them every promoting message I could think of. Eat your vegetables, you grow up big and strong. Eat your vegetables, you'll be like your favorite sport hero. Eat your vegetables, I'll give you money. It would not work. Why? They didn't like the way they looked or tasted. It was not until I removed that restraining force that I got success. And let me tell you, and all your listeners, if you have young kids, ice cream sprinkles on broccoli will change your life. But the point is, if you are going into a situation where you think there is potential resistance, potential objections, think about what those could be. Think about messaging that can help reduce the resistance. Why might somebody not want to listen to what you're saying? Is it that it costs too much money, takes too much time, requires too much change? Address those in your messaging as well as all the reasons why. So that's number one. Number two, when you actually hear the rejection, try to reframe it in a way that can work to your advantage. I'll give you a classic sales example I talk to my MBA students about all the time. If you're in the middle of pitching somebody and somebody raises their hand and says, "You're too expensive. Why do you cost so much?" Big rejection, big objection, right? Reframe it. So the question about pricing is really a question about the value you provide. So as you intake the question, as the question comes in, reframe it as a question of value. Say, so you're asking about the value of what we provide. Give your value proposition, and then come back at the end and comment on the price. So you would say, and because of all the value we provide, we price the product this way. So you always answer the question asked, but if you can convert the question into something that's more palatable for you and you have a stronger story for, do so. So again, that requires pre-work. Questions about price are questions about value. I need to know that. Finally, asking questions can be really helpful. So when somebody starts to pull away from you or somebody starts to object, demonstrate empathy and concern, trying to figure out what the challenge or issue is, listen to it, and if you have a response, immediately respond. If not, promise a follow-up and come back to them. Rejection is often comes from a place of uncertainty or status quo bias where people don't want to change. Try to understand what the root is, and then you can address it.
What's like the keystone concept that either people can go deeper on and study or really master to use communication, their communication to its fullest potential?
So I'm going to give you two. First and foremost, in any communication, you really have to think about your goal. What is the goal I'm trying to achieve? And a goal to me has three parts: information, emotion, and action. What do I want my audience to know when I'm done? Concrete, bottom line, here's what they need to know. How do I want them to feel? Many of us don't spend time thinking about the feeling aspect. Do I want them excited, confident, concerned? Do I want them to feel listened to? And then ultimately, what is the action that I want that is concrete and measurable? So you must define your goal for every interaction, and it will change based on who your audience is. So even if you're doing the same kind of pitch, each audience is different, your goal should change. That's number one. Know, feel, do. Understand that clearly. It is your North Star for everything you say. Second, you must provide a structure. Many people ramble. You must be clear and concise in your structure. My favorite structure in the entire world is very simple. What? So what? Now what? Any message can be placed into this structure. What is it you're talking about? Your offering, your idea, your product, your service. That's the what. So what? Why is it important, relevant, and critical for the people you are talking to? It is the value for them. And then now what? What are the next steps? Is it sign on the dotted line, set up another meeting, look for a demo? What, so what, now what helps you structure your information, makes it clear and concise. It has relevance built in, and it has a next step. It is a wonderful way to package information. And Bill, everything I have said today has been in that structure. I've told you an answer to the question. I've told you why it's important. And then I've suggested how and what people can do with it. It helps in planned as well as spontaneous speaking.